morning. Thank you so much for having the patience and waiting for this. Me and my big chair. I'm sitting in a big chair because this thing is called Living in a Big World.
Aww.
And these are just going to be like a bunch of random poems and stories and things all about all the bizarro things that can happen in this world. Hope you like. We sit here at dinner. I try to breathe. I rest my hands on my thighs. I must watch to be sure everything has to be right. It's dinner. The silverware, small fork, large fork, dinner plate, knife, large spoon, small spoon, water glass, wine glass. I know no one sees them. The fish, the red fish, they're hanging in the curtains along the walls. You have to watch to see them. My eyes always glance there. They are evil fish. They like to sit in the curtains. They wait, and then they come out. And the yogurt's the only thing that you can do to actually save yourself. Just throw the yogurt at them. You use your spoon, use your hands, anything. And we sat there before dinner, and he ate his yogurt with his small spoon, but before I could stop him. How could you do this? How can you save yourself now? Will I have to save you again? Do you even understand the danger? I try to learn about the world. I try to understand the world. With my first travels, I did a Midwest tour of poetry, and then I went to the Chicago Poetry Show at the National Poetry Slam in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I sell my performance art audio on iTunes and Napster. I try to share myself with the world, but I wonder if I'm actually getting through to anyone. I heard a Native American man whose parents were from different tribes, meaning you never really have any true allegiance with just one tribe. Well, he traveled extensively, and he came back and he tried to talk to people from either tribe, and no one wanted to hear anything he had to say. They called him Exebache, which means man who talks loud, say nothing. Exebache, man who talks loud, say nothing. What am I saying? I've traveled around the world, but I've never actually talked to a Native American. I actually saw that in a movie. I don't even know if Exebache is a Native American word or anything, but, if I wanted to know something about the world, maybe I should check out the TV, because if they can send news reporters to foreign countries, they've got to be able to carry something. So let me just pull on my TV remote here and go press that play button, and hopefully it'll show something, not about war, something good to see. I don't know. I know this is a normal thing for me to be going through. I know that I have been raped and beaten, and I know they've tried to kill me. But lucky me, I survived. I think I can survive anything they throw at me. But as time wears on, little pieces of this statue are chipped away. Everybody wants something, right? Well, they've been taking from me, and taking, and taking, and taking, and my defenses are getting weaker, and I don't know how much more fighting I can do. But you want to know what I want? I want a big house with filtered central air, and I want a big lawn so that I can recreate nature. And I want a big fence so that I'll know what's mine. And I want the evergreens trimmed into neat little balls because it has to look neat. Plant everything in a row. Oh, and don't forget, spray chemicals on my lawn because I want to keep away those dandelions. You know, some flowers good, some bad. Oh, I want the plastic lobster bib over my fancy dress at that fancy restaurant. And don't forget that $100 champagne. And I want a big fat car. And I want someone else to drive me around in it. Oh, and I want the 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl. And I want a nanny to take care of them for me. I want to be famous. I want everyone to love me. I want it. I want it all. We lived in Pennsylvania for like 6 months, and while I continued to do my work with CC&D magazine, I got a P.O. box in the town of Intercourse, Pennsylvania. And actually, it was an Amish town, and we would go there to stock up on spices and stuff, and the Amish people who worked there were all short. And now I know that I'm tall, but when I say they're short, I should also say that their heads looked childlike, and that the people working there looked like they had a mild form of or early stages of Down syndrome. We could only guess by looking at the faces of these people that the Amish had too severe a history of inbreeding, and no one new came into their community. And recently, I was in Champaign to plant a tree, and we stopped at a mall there, and there was this hydro massage store in the mall. It was this temporary place that had booths set up for individuals to lay down in, and many jets of water pulsated into plastic sheets over a person's body. It was a massage thing that people would pay for. Now, I've seen things like this before, but I was told I should, try this, just splurge. So I was laying in this thing, which looked like a tanning bed with your head sticking out at one end. And John was there, and he talked to a few girls there because he noticed how they looked like they were dressed in near Amish or Mennonite clothing. And they're in a mall, and they're Amish. And, well, he was talking to them, and he found out these girls were in their late teens, and they came in from out of town on a bus trip. Yes, they were Amish, but yes, this was a trip sponsored by their Amish community. And one of the girls said they were on this trip to hopefully find a husband. And it seemed like they were willing to give up this, to take this much technology into the outskirts of their lives so they could find someone else to have children with. The choices we make, the sacrifices we make to help our lives, or the things we're willing to destroy when faced with insurmountable decisions.
These pieces of music you're listening to are from artists that have done work with my stuff in the past, and there's information about them on those checkbooks. As a cop, I remember one lady, we found her in her bathtub. She cut her throat. That's odd for women. Normally they take pills. They don't like to disfigure themselves. But she knew what she was doing, cutting her throat in a full bath. Less messy that way. Autopsy said she was full of barbiturates. She was a nurse. That explained how she knew how to do it. But then we found out that she was pregnant, too. And to top it off, her brother was a priest.
I'm sorry. I was listening to my iPod. Well, wait, let me see if I can actually tune this so that you can hear the music for it too. Can I hook this up? Can this work? Can I do it? How does this sound? Is this it? Oh, yeah. and you know, I was thinking about it. Advancements in technology, they've been a wonderful thing, and many say that it's brought the world closer together, and it's made people be more connected. And on certain levels, I can totally agree with that. I mean, I read submissions for my magazine from email, which saves paper and ink and postage and time. And I keep magazines online so that people around the world could read good writing. I've even had musicians from Wisconsin, Ohio, Tennessee, New Mexico, even Canada find my readings online and design music for my words. But at the same time, I sit at my same computer all day, staring at the same screen all day of technology, instead of actually talking with people face to face. I mean, at one point I checked my email. The people that I emailed the most were in the same city as me. They were all only a local phone call away. In fact, one of my friends lived a block and a half away from me, on the same street as me. But I emailed her as much as I called her, even though I could just, get off my ass and walk down the street and have a face-to-face conversation with her. And even phone, with cell phones, you can have a phone with you wherever you want to go, and you will never feel lonely. You'll always feel safe. But I think at the same time, it just gives teenagers an excuse, a very expensive excuse, to talk endlessly on the phone. And at the same time, I also think that I could just kill people who are hanging out in a public place, like at a bar with friends, and they could get a walkie-talkie style phone, and they start shouting little phrases one at one another, loudly, incoherently, for people who couldn't even bother to be there. But, I mean, the iPhone just came out, and it was combining a cell phone with the iPod as well as internet services. But I think that some bits of technology actually help you to tune out the world. I mean, when people see these headphones coming off of somebody, they know that you've apparently found something bigger and better to do with your time than to actually talk to them. But even without technology, I'll go for a walk every day, and I'll carry the iPod around with me, but I'll also wear sunglasses, even if it's a completely overcast day like it was today, because then everyone I pass will have no idea if I am staring at every single feature in that person. Yeah, as I said, technology can actually bring the world closer together, but it can also drive the world farther apart, so that we can ignore all the news that doesn't fit in with what we want to believe. Stories we don't want to hear about. I heard a story recently about a little boy, one of many who was enslaved by his country in child labor. In this case, he worked for a carpet factory. He managed to escape. He told the story to the world. He was a hero at 10. But people from the factory held a grudge, and later I heard that that little boy was shot and killed in the streets. He was 12. And people complain to me when I buy shoes that are made in China. Now I have to think, did somebody have to die for these? Will somebody have to die for these? Thinking about what children in different parts of the world go through. I was actually in China recently, and I saw a little boy, a toddler, outside, drop his pants at the street side at a market and just start pissing on the sidewalk. And I saw this, and I saw in the market all these people there, and nobody really seemed to think anything of this. And someone later explained to me that while they're little, toddler boys in China can go to the bathroom like that in public, number one or number two. But you know, if they go number two, the mother then has to pick up their feces, you know, like they were taking care of a dog. But if you talk about trains, or talk about China, I saw on the train when I was there in China that they had television screens in every car. And they had some sort of show on that looked, you know, something like America's Funniest Home Videos. And I couldn't understand a thing that was being said by these Chinese people on this television on the screen, but you had to watch, and you had to laugh, and it was a great way to bring levity when you were on a public train, like when you're on the L train going to work every morning. Because once I was sitting on an L train, and I saw a Middle Eastern man sitting right across from me, and he was holding a large Ziploc bag of some sort of food paste inside. I couldn't tell. It looked like some sort of curry-filled food paste. And the man looked unhappy, and after a few minutes, the man then opened up his Ziploc bag, threw up into his Ziploc bag, and then closed the bag again. Curry-filled food paste. And so this man apparently was carrying his vomit around with him on the train. I guess at least he had a resealable bag. He could close it up. I mean, a lot of us have experiences about being in this city, and I've tried to see the world, not just this continent, but, you know, 15 European countries, Russia and China, and I've searched for these stories around the world. I've gotten my passport stamped like mad, and my sister then told me about Don Stump, who was a friend of my dad's. He ran a restaurant. Well, his father-in-law apparently bought and had the rights to the space in outer space. I mean, you know, above the Earth's atmosphere, anything between stars and comets and, you know, all that, you know, asteroids and cool stuff like that. But anyway, I mean, this guy, Don Stump's father-in-law, even had the astronauts' passports stamped for going into outer space, you know, because they were crossing his land. And this totally blew my mind. But Don Stump was pushed away from their house once. Apparently Don's father-in-law had, like, FBI agents over and stuff because his father-in-law started minting coins. I mean, not the kind that you could actually use in the United States or anything, but it's illegal for U.S. residents to make any sort of profit this way, the way he might have potentially done. Now, Don and his wife and his parents have passed away, so I guess I can't get my passport stamped, so I'd say I'm going into outer space. But when you go up high in the Earth's atmosphere, everything looks pretty much the same. I mean, if you go along the eastern side of Siberia with its mountain ridges and snow peaks, it looks like the Rockies in the wintertime. It's only when you get closer do you see the actual differences. I talk about different places, but even think about Chicago and how beautiful it is from the ground as well as from the sky. Chicago looks grand from the sky with this huge expanse of lake next to it, like civilization crept up as far as it could, but finally had to stop. The power of nature stopping the power of mankind. Daylight and snow on the ground in the wintertime. It looks dirty. Too many cars have splashed mud on it as it drove by. And in the winter, the sky almost matches the shade of gray of the snow. Fitting for the city of the blues. Maybe the snow is already that color, that perfect shade of gray when it falls from the sky in this city. And when I'm in the air, I like to look out the window. Clouds look like cotton balls when you're above them. And when you're landing, cars look like little ants, like on a mission bringing food back to their hill. And the streets, they look like veins, capillaries in some sort of massive, monstrous body. And when you're in the air, the farmland looks like little squares of color. I wonder why each plot of land is a different color. What's growing there that makes them look different? Well, maybe it's that some of them are turning shades of red and brown because some of them are dying. And it always seems on a plane that you're stuck next to somebody that's either too wide for their seat or is a businessman with his newspaper stretched out and he's got his laptop open on top of that tiny little stupid fold-out table that's in front of you. Once, when I was on a flight back from D.C., actually, a flight attendant walked by, a stack of magazines in her hand, Time, Newsweek, Business Week. So I stopped her and I asked her, "Excuse me, what magazines do you have?" And she just kind of looked at me surprised, blindly. She said, "Oh, these magazines are for men." This is a true story. So I asked her again, "What magazines do you have?" I had already read Time, so I took Newsweek. And you know, I've flown all over the place. But I heard this story about flying from Hawaii before I flew there. And I even told this story to a song from Square Waves that you're hearing right now at our live concert in Alaska. But according to this guy who actually lived through this, I said, I was on a flight to Hawaii, and I was waiting in line to use the lavatory. I mean, it always seemed that there was a line for the flight this long, you know. It always seemed like the lavatories and the bathrooms were always on demand for a flight this long. So I'm waiting in line, and I finally get there, and I open the door, and I close it so that it says occupied instead of vacant. And I turn around, and I look at the toilet, and, well, someone lost the battle against a very healthy digestive system and left these spoils in the toilet stuck. I mean, maybe it didn't want to go where all the other stuff from this flight had to go to. I mean, can you imagine all the crap that a plane is supposed to take across there? Well, anyway, I flushed the thing and it wouldn't move. So I go to the bathroom and I'm done. I wash my hands and I flush again and the thing still wouldn't budge. So I turn on, I unlatch the door, and I open the door, and I look out at this long line of people waiting to use this crowded little washroom. And I just wanted to tell them all, you know, I didn't do that. But then I figured that everyone, when they left that bathroom on the same flight, would think the exact same thing. And you know, I talk about travel around the world, but where we come from shows who we are. I mean, once I was on the other side of the world at the Summer Palace, and an older man came over to me, knowing little English, and said, "My daughter and I wanted to know where you were from." So, not knowing how much geography he knew, I said, "I'm from the United States, in Illinois, in Chicago." And that's when this old man from the other side of the world said, "Oh, my kind of town." And I started laughing, knowing the song, "My kind of town." And so I started laughing, and then he said, "Frank Sinatra sang that." And I laughed harder, and then I realized that although I try to learn about the world, my soul is still having a good hold on my Chicago roots. And other editors even comment on my style of writing being affected by being from the Midwest or being from Chicago. Being from here affects my style and my art, oftentimes as much as my family history. I talk about learning stories from around the world, but I think we can also learn from stories right here. And as we live here in this big world, it helps us not to feel so small, but to grow larger than life.
songs about Newark. If they did, we'd kill them. Thank you for showing people.